Welcome to Betrayal and Revenge. I'm your storyteller, and today I'll take you on a journey of secrets, lies, and payback. Make sure you stay with me until the very end. You won't want to miss how it all unfolds. And when it's over, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let me know what you think. I was already halfway gone when she told me she was pregnant. It was a Tuesday, gray, nothing weather, the kind of day that passes through your memory like fog through bare trees. I came home late on purpose. Took the long way back from work. Sat in the car for 10 minutes staring at the house before finally walking in. The lights were off, except for the kitchen. The quiet inside felt deliberate, like she'd orchestrated it. We hadn't spoken much in weeks. Just the basics. Did you feed the dog? I'll be back late. Can you grab the mail? The kinds of exchanges that turn lovers into roommates, and then into strangers. I was sleeping on the couch half the time. Not because she asked me to. Just because the bed started to feel like a place where something was expected of me I no longer had the energy to give. I was going to end it that night. Not because of someone else, there was no one else, but because I couldn't keep pretending we were still something worth fighting for. The arguments had grown mechanical. Her smiles were plastic. We used to talk about everything. Now she couldn't look me in the eye for more than 10 seconds without blinking, like she was allergic to honesty. I walked into the kitchen, and she was already sitting there, arms crossed, her phone face down next to a glass of wine she hadn't touched. I noticed her makeup immediately, not heavy, but fresh. She'd done herself up for this. And she wasn't drinking. That registered as strange. Before I could speak, she reached into her purse and pulled something out, wrapped in a tissue. She placed it on the table between us like a dead mouse a cat would drop at your feet. A small, pale thing meant to provoke reaction. I stared at it, confused at first. Then I saw what it was. A pregnancy test. The digital kind. I blinked. 2 pink lines. 2 clear, defined, undeniable lines. My heart didn't skip. It dropped. Fully. Like a body into cold water. I just found out this morning, she said, her voice trembling, but only just. I didn't want to tell you like this, but I didn't know how else. I didn't respond right away. Because I couldn't. Because my brain was still flipping through layers of disbelief like a Rolodex spinning in reverse. Just hours ago, I'd been planning what to say, how to leave with grace, with dignity, with enough respect to not burn it all down. And now I was staring at something that changed everything. Or at least, that's what it was meant to do. You're pregnant? I asked, even though I was staring at the evidence. She nodded fast, almost eager, like it was a relief to finally drop the weight she'd been carrying. Yeah, she said. I didn't even expect it. I was late a few days and I guess, well, yeah? Silence again. Thicker this time. In my gut, something twisted. Because I knew her. I knew how she looked when she was surprised. When she was vulnerable. When something unexpected threw her off balance. This wasn't that. She was too composed. Too timed. The way she laid the test down, the way she spoke, it felt like a presentation, not a confession. Like something rehearsed. How far along? I asked carefully. She shrugged. A couple weeks? I haven't been to the doctor yet. I was waiting to be sure. Waiting to be sure. She found out this morning, but waited to tell me tonight. The night she knew I'd be home late. The night I was planning to walk. 1,000 alarm bells started going off in the back of my head. But I pushed them down. Because I'm not a man who walks away from responsibility. And if there really was a baby, my baby, I wasn't going to be the guy who made her go through it alone. Still, something was wrong. I felt it before I even fully accepted it. I could see it in her eyes. Not the soft panic of someone unprepared for motherhood. Not even the fear of telling the man she didn't trust anymore. No, it was something else. Control. She was watching me too closely. Reading my reactions like a script supervisor, waiting for the next line to land. This wasn't vulnerability. This was a trap disguised as a second chance. Okay, I finally said. Then we figure it out. Her expression shifted, just slightly, but enough to make me wonder if she had expected more resistance. Or more relief. She reached for my hand across the table. I let her. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed time. Time to think. To understand. To verify. We didn't talk much more that night. She mentioned maybe booking a doctor's appointment for later in the week. I told her to let me know when. I went to bed early. She stayed up watching TV. From the sound of it, she wasn't even watching, just clicking through menus, volume low, lights off. As if sound filled the spaces honesty couldn't. In bed, I stared at the ceiling for hours. The timing was too perfect. Too convenient. And the test? Too clean. Too placed. I knew her tells. And this wasn't fear. This was strategy. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. That's what she wanted, right? Normal. As if the bomb she dropped on our kitchen table hadn't scorched the air between us. As if I wasn't already calculating the odds, the lies, the timelines. I made coffee. Poured hers the way she liked it, hazelnut creamer, splash of oat milk, 2 cubes of ice. I hadn't made her coffee in weeks. Her smile, when she saw the cup waiting for her, looked too bright, too forced, like a child who just got caught faking sleep when the lights come back on. Thanks, she said, brushing her hair back like a shy teenager. That's sweet. Sweet. Right. She sat across from me at the island, scrolling through her phone but watching me from the corners of her eyes. I glanced up once, met her gaze, and she looked away too fast. It wasn't shyness. It was the flinch of someone hoping her lie was still holding together. I could have asked to see the test again. I didn't. Not because I didn't want to. But because I already knew I would. On my own terms. In my own time. After she left for work, if she really was going to work, I went upstairs and opened the bathroom trash. Top layer, tissues, wrapper from a granola bar, empty shampoo bottle. Second layer, the tissue she'd wrapped the test in. I pulled it out, peeled it open carefully, like a crime scene tech not wanting to disturb the evidence. There it was, the same test she'd shown me. 2 pink lines, crisp and clean. Too clean. Something bothered me. The test didn't smell. Didn't feel damp. No plastic sheen, no visible smudge from where it might have been held or wiped off. It looked, and used. Or rather, unlived in. Like a prop. I turned it over. No expiration date visible. No brand printed on the back. Odd. I'd seen real ones before. My sister had twins. I remembered hers being Messier. Slight color bleeding, a bit of fogging on the screen. This one was pristine. A museum piece of manipulation. I set it down and grabbed my laptop. Searched the brand name printed faintly on the wrapper she tossed. It took 2 minutes to find an Amazon listing. Set of 5 fake positive pregnancy tests for pranks, bachelorette parties, gag gifts. 5 stars. 1 day's shipping. I felt something cold move down my spine. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Not because I didn't believe it, but because somewhere inside me, I did. She lied. And not just any lie. Not a forgotten dinner or an emotional affair or some desperate, cornered half-truth. This was calculated. Premeditated. Weaponized. A performance with props. And the worst part? She hadn't done it out of joy. She'd done it to trap me. Because she knew I was leaving. She knew I had 1 foot out the door, and the other already searching for solid ground. And she knew the only thing strong enough to make me pause was the idea of a child, something innocent, something vulnerable, something I could never walk away from. She hadn't just lied to me. She'd fabricated a life. A person. She tried to drag a ghost into existence just to handcuff me to the wreckage of our marriage. And in that moment, standing in the bathroom holding a test bought for $12.99 with free shipping, I knew this wasn't about love. It never had been. It was about control. That night I made her dinner. Pasta. The kind she liked: handmade tagliatelle, heavy cream sauce, fresh basil. I bought wine, even though she wouldn't drink it. Lit a candle. Played the jazz playlist she used to love before everything between us curdled. She smiled like it was a scene from a movie she thought she'd directed. "What's all this?" she asked, stepping into the kitchen, her voice light, almost giddy. "You're pregnant," I said, lifting a glass of water to her like a toast. "We should celebrate." I watched the way her eyes widened, then softened, relief, satisfaction, control all playing across her face in a seamless performance. She thought the lie had worked. She thought I had swallowed the bait, hook and all. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, is that I was done being honest. She faked a child to trap me. I would fake a future to bury her. Because now I wasn't leaving. Not yet. Not until I unraveled her from the inside. I sat through dinner like a man reborn. Nodded in the right places. Asked about baby names. Told her we should start thinking about buying a bigger place. Watched her eyes sparkle with the power she thought she'd reclaimed. "I've always loved the name Evelyn," she said, swirling her fork through sauce she barely touched. "And if it's a boy, maybe Caleb. What do you think?" "I think Evelyn sounds beautiful," I replied, smiling like a man who meant it. I didn't sleep on the couch that night. I curled up beside her in the bed we hadn't shared in weeks, feeling her body melt into mine like old times. But my arms didn't hold her. They measured. They remembered. They built the wall inside me brick by quiet brick. Every day that followed, I gave her exactly what she wanted. Morning kisses. Texts in the afternoon. A sudden interest in prenatal vitamins and nursery colors. I offered to go with her to the doctor's appointment. She said she'd go alone the first time, said she was nervous and wanted to confirm it privately before getting too excited. I nodded. Told her I understood. And then I followed her. I parked 2 rows away in the clinic lot. Watched her walk inside. Waited. 1 hour. 2. She didn't come out. She never went in. My phone buzzed. A text. They were running behind. I rescheduled. Going back next week instead. She was lying. Again. Seamlessly. And that's when I knew she wasn't just pretending. She was committed to the fiction. There was no pregnancy. No doctor. No plan for motherhood. Just a script she was improvising from week to week, trusting that I was too stunned, too emotionally bound to ever question it out loud. She didn't realize I already had. And more than that, I had answers. Because while she played out her little drama, I was playing out a longer game. I was documenting every text, every missed appointment, every inconsistency in her timeline. I ordered a second test, real this time, and slid it into the medicine cabinet behind the floss. Waited for her to see it. Watched as she carefully avoided it for days. She was good. I'll give her that. But she wasn't careful. Not in the ways that mattered. She thought she could manipulate me with biology. She didn't realize I could destroy her with silence. The next time she brought up baby furniture, I nodded. Asked if we should open a savings account. She beamed. Said she was glad I was finally committed. I smiled. Squeezed her hand. For our child, I said, my voice steady. What I didn't say was this. The only thing I was committed to now was the plan. A plan that would make her fake pregnancy feel very, very real. When the fallout finally arrived. And it would. Because the truth doesn't knock politely. It erupts. And when it did, I wanted to be standing right there. Smiling. Weeks passed. She made herself into a mother without ever growing a child. She rubbed her belly after meals, sighed dramatically while lying on the couch, and picked fights with me only to blame them on hormones. She started declining wine at dinner parties with our friends, placing a careful palm over her stomach with a bashful look like she couldn't wait for someone to ask. And they did. People congratulated us. Hugs. Smiles. One of her girlfriends cried. She leaned into the performance so naturally, so seamlessly, you'd think she had been training for it her whole life. And maybe she had. The night I caught her Googling, "When does a baby bump show?" was the night I knew she was beginning to panic beneath the surface. She thought she had me under her spell. But really, she was trying to keep herself from drowning in her own lie. Because the one thing a fantasy can't do is change biology. There was no morning sickness. No bloating. No missed appointments with proof. Only vague excuses and empty promises. "It's still early," she'd say. "Every pregnancy is different. They couldn't see much yet." I'd nod gently. I was always gentle. The perfect picture of understanding. And meanwhile, I dug deeper. She didn't know I had access to the home computer's history. She didn't know I saw the Amazon order, the fake test set, buried among shoe returns and skincare. She didn't know I had photos of the packaging. That I'd called the OB clinic she claimed to visit and learned she'd never been there. That every time she gave me a date or time, I logged it in a hidden document titled Future. Because I wasn't planning on confronting her. I was planning on erasing her. But first, I needed her to feel safe. So I offered to build the nursery. Her face lit up like fireworks. She clutched my hands and whispered thank you. I went all out, painted the spare room a soft pale green, bought a crib she picked from Pinterest, hung fairy lights above the window. Each item was a layer of theater. A trap she decorated with her own delusion. I even printed ultrasound pictures. Stock images. Found online. Slipped one into a frame and placed it on her bedside table when she was out. When she came home, she gasped. "Oh my God! This looks just like how mine will look!" She didn't even flinch. She just believed. Because belief, for her, wasn't about truth. It was about control. She held the frame like a real mother. Cradled it. Wept. I watched her cry over pixels, over lies, over a child that didn't exist and never would. And I knew in that moment that when she finally fell, it would be from a height she built for herself. It started subtly. A sideways glance from one of her friends. A pause too long during a conversation. The kinds of micro-reactions people don't notice unless they're looking for them. I was looking. Because I needed her world to start shifting before the storm hit, and it was. It happened at brunch, 2 weeks after the nursery was finished. We sat with her best friend, Danielle, and her husband at a corner table by the window. My wife wore a loose sweater, but not loose enough to hide the truth. 5 weeks passed when she claimed she'd tested positive. By her calendar, she was nearly 2.5 months in. Danielle smiled, polite but strained. "You're glowing," she said, sipping her mimosa. "But are you sure you're... I mean, you look amazing. Not even a bump?" My wife laughed, a beat too loud. "Oh, I'm one of those women who doesn't show for months. Remember Julia? She didn't pop until, like 20 weeks. Right. Danielle replied, still smiling, but her eyes flicked to me. I gave her nothing. Just sipped my coffee, my hand resting casually over my wife's. Danielle knew. Not completely. But something wasn't sitting right. And that was exactly what I wanted. Doubt. Ripples. I didn't need to tell anyone anything, she'd do it for me, just by trying too hard to keep the lie alive. That evening, my wife stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, holding different tops against her body. Turning sideways. I watched from the bed. "Do you think I should start wearing maternity jeans?" "Only if you're uncomfortable," I said softly. "You look beautiful." She smiled at the mirror, not at me. A smile that belonged to someone trying to prove something to herself. Later that night, I heard her watching YouTube videos in bed. Early pregnancy bellies, second trimester. What does baby movement feel like at 12 weeks? When will I look pregnant? I closed my eyes, memorizing the titles. She was spiraling. And she didn't even realize the floor beneath her feet was something I'd already sawed through. The next morning, she brought up baby showers. "We should plan one," she said, too cheerful. "Something small. Maybe in the backyard." "Sure," I said, buttering toast. We can make a registry too. People are going to want to buy you all the cute stuff. Her eyes sparkled. She thought the lie had momentum now. That she had time. That maybe, somehow, reality would catch up with the fantasy. That maybe she'd just keep playing until something real grew out of the pretending. That's what scared me the most, not her lie, but her belief in it. She wanted the pregnancy to exist so badly, she started treating it like a manifestation game. Positive thoughts. Visualization. Pretend long enough, and the universe will deliver. But the body doesn't take bribes. And every day that passed without a symptom, without an appointment, without evidence, was another day closer to the implosion. I offered to take maternity photos. She laughed and said it was too soon. I said I thought she was glowing, and she melted into me. I told her I wanted to buy a dad mug for work. She cried. Said I was making her fall in love with me all over again. I watched those tears slide down her cheeks and wondered if she even remembered how this all began. A test. A lie. A performance. And I wondered, if she believed it now, even halfway, who exactly was I taking revenge on? The liar? Or the girl who'd lied so well, she became the lie? 2 months turned into 3. By now, the cracks weren't just showing, they were splitting open. Her appetite vanished. She stopped bringing up doctor appointments. Stopped talking about names. She got quieter. And every time we were in public, her smile looked more like a mask made of glass, pretty from a distance, but hollow when you leaned in too close. People noticed. Her mother called twice in 1 week asking when she'd see the ultrasound. It's a high-anxiety pregnancy, she'd say, pacing the living room while mouthing to me to not say anything. The doctor wants to wait to avoid stress. We'll do a proper scan in a few weeks. She looked relieved when the calls ended. But I saw it. Her hands shaking when she hung up. Her shoulders slumping in private like a puppet dropped mid-scene. That's when she started getting paranoid. She searched my pockets when I got home. Glanced over my phone screen if it buzzed near her. She even installed a second password on her laptop, which I cracked in under an hour. Nothing new. Just Google searches like, can stress cause a missed period for 3 months? And, how long can you fake a pregnancy before someone finds out? She was unraveling. And I was feeding her rope. I took her out to dinner for our 4-month baby milestone. Told the waiter we were celebrating. She beamed, laughed, held her stomach as if something kicked. But her skin was pale. Her hands cold. She barely touched her plate. Maybe it's morning sickness again, she muttered. At dinner? I said, smiling. Poor thing. I'll draw you a bath when we get home. She nodded, but didn't look at me. Just stared into her wine glass like she wanted to drown in it. That night, she stood in the bathroom staring at herself in the mirror for 20 minutes. I watched through the crack in the door. She pulled up her shirt. Turned sideways. Pinched skin. Bit her lip. And then I heard her whisper something under her breath. I couldn't catch it all, but I saw the fear in her face. The kind of fear people get not when they're caught, but when they know they're about to be. She slipped into bed in silence. I wrapped an arm around her and kissed the top of her head. I love you, I said gently. And I can't wait to meet our baby. She flinched. Not enough to notice, if you weren't paying attention. But I was. Because I wanted her to feel it. The weight. The pressure. The lie pressing down harder with every day that passed. And it was working. The next morning, she told me she was going away for the weekend. A retreat, she said. Just a few days with some women from yoga. I need time to relax, to focus on bonding with the baby. Of course, I said, kissing her hand. You deserve that. She left Friday afternoon. I followed an hour later. She didn't go to a retreat. She checked into a cheap hotel outside town, alone. Spent the weekend ordering food, watching movies, and from what I could tell through the app I'd installed on her phone, Googling terms like how to fake miscarriage and pregnancy loss story templates. That was when I knew she'd reached her endgame. She was going to kill the child that never existed. Make a tragedy out of a performance. Turn fiction into mourning, and hope I'd be too numb to question it. But that's where she miscalculated. Because I wasn't numb. I was ready. She didn't know it yet, but she was walking into a trap made of her own lies, wrapped in sympathy she hadn't earned. And when she finally told me the baby was gone, she'd find out what real grief felt like. Not for a child, but for the life I was about to take away from her. She came home Sunday night, face drawn and pale, suitcase dragging behind her like it weighed the full measure of her deceit. I was sitting in the living room, lights dimmed, fireplace on low. I had made tea. Jasmine, her favorite. The smell filled the room with something soft and nostalgic, something she once associated with peace. I saw it the moment she walked in. Her eyes were wet but controlled, red-rimmed but careful. Like someone who'd rehearsed the expression in the rearview mirror 100 times before opening the car door. She didn't speak right away. Just stood in the doorway, staring at me like she was unsure whether the performance should begin now or after the tea. I waited. Let the silence stretch, heavy and inviting. "Can I talk to you?" she said finally, voice trembling. I nodded, stood slowly, took her suitcase from her hand and wheeled it aside like we were still a team. Like she hadn't been planning a eulogy for something that never existed. "Of course," I said. "Come sit." She curled up beside me on the couch, pulled a throw blanket around her knees like a child. I watched her, quietly, studying every detail, the way her fingers curled around the fabric, the way she kept her gaze downward, the tension in her shoulders. "I didn't want this to happen," she whispered. "I was being so careful. I did everything right." I said nothing. "I was at the retreat. And I started cramping. I thought it was just stress, maybe. But then I started bleeding. A lot." She paused, swallowed, looked up at me. "The baby's gone." I didn't flinch. Didn't gasp, didn't pull her into my arms or kiss her forehead or say the words she clearly wanted me to say. "It's okay. I'm here. We'll get through this together." I just looked at her, a soft sorrow in my eyes. The kind of sorrow you might wear at someone else's funeral. Distant. Respectful. Hollow. "Did you go to the hospital?" I asked. Her eyes flickered. Just for a second. "No. I called the retreat doctor. She said unless it was heavy or lasted more than a few hours, there wasn't much they could do. It stopped." "Did you save anything? The tissue?" She blinked, startled. "What?" "I mean, if there was anything past, they usually tell women to save it. For testing. I read about that." Her face twisted, hurt maybe. But not real hurt. Defensive confusion. I didn't think to. I was in shock." I nodded again. Slowly. "I understand." And I did. I understood everything. I understood she'd spent the entire weekend constructing a tragedy. That somewhere in her mind she believed a fake miscarriage would buy her redemption. Sympathy. Time. She thought I'd mourn with her. Thought the sadness would glue us back together. But grief doesn't work that way. Especially not when there was never anything to grieve. She leaned into me, and I let her. Let her weep against my chest, her tears soaking into my shirt like some sort of baptism. She clung to me, shaking, whispering apologies, broken promises, pleas for forgiveness she didn't even have the words to articulate. And I held her. Because it was the last comfort she would ever get from me. Inside I was ice. Solid. Still. Not because I didn't feel, but because I felt too much. She had used motherhood as a weapon. And now she was trying to use death the same way. To trap me in a grief that wasn't mine. But grief is sacred. And what she did was blasphemy. And I would make sure she remembered that, every single day that followed. By Tuesday, the news had spread. Her mother called sobbing. Danielle sent flowers. Someone from work delivered a casserole and a handwritten card with baby footprints on the front. She displayed it all on the kitchen table like an altar. Like grief was something you could curate, frame, make visible. I watched her thank everyone with practiced grace. Every hug, every tear, every. We were so excited, returned with a mournful smile and trembling voice. We were too, she'd say. We really were. The truth was, she loved the sympathy. Almost needed it more than the lie itself. If she could wrap herself in enough condolence, she wouldn't have to answer questions. Wouldn't have to face the hollowness behind the narrative. But she forgot one thing. Grief invites intimacy. And intimacy demands evidence. Danielle visited us that Thursday. She brought wine, assuming my wife wouldn't be drinking, but was surprised when she poured herself half a glass. You sure? Danielle asked gently. I mean, that soon? My wife paused for a beat too long. The doctor said it was fine. Just a small glass. Danielle nodded, but I caught the flicker again. That subtle narrowing of her gaze. The same one she had at brunch. The kind that says something's wrong but I can't prove it yet. I decided to help her along. We've been trying to take it slow, I said, setting down my glass. The nursery's still untouched. Danielle looked at me, confused. You set up the nursery already? He insisted. My wife cut in quickly. He was so excited. Even before we hit 10 weeks. And no one ever saw the ultrasound? Danielle asked, her tone too casual. We were going to surprise everyone, my wife said, the words tight. It felt personal. Intimate. Danielle didn't respond. She just sipped her wine and changed the subject. But I saw it. The idea had been planted. The doubt had spread. And that night, while my wife was asleep, I made sure it kept growing. I sent Danielle a message from a private account. Anonymous. Polite. Simple. Sometimes grief is real. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes people lie to keep things they're afraid to lose. Be careful who you believe. No accusations. No threats. Just a seed. The next day, my wife was restless. Said she felt like people were looking at her differently. Said someone from work had asked which hospital she went to. Said Danielle had seemed distant. Do you think they don't believe me? She asked, eyes wide with fear. What do you mean? I asked softly. The miscarriage. The pregnancy. All of it. I tilted my head. Why wouldn't they? She looked at me for a long moment. Her lips parted, like she was about to confess something, but then she swallowed it. Instead, she wrapped her arms around herself and whispered, Never mind. She was unraveling again. But now, not just from within. Now, the world around her was starting to feel it too. That's the thing about lies, they make too much noise when they break. And I was just getting started. By the end of the week, she was suffocating in the silence of people who'd stopped asking questions. That was always the first sign, when once sympathetic faces became polite and distant. When coworkers smiled with lips only. When friends changed the subject quickly. When texts went unanswered longer than they should have. She tried to fix it with overexposure. Posted a long, heartfelt message on social media, black and white photo of baby socks on an empty windowsill, captioned with a poem about loss and strength. It racked up like hearts, tear emojis. But the comments were fewer than she expected. And some were clipped. Thinking of you. Sending light. Take care. Not we're here for you. Not we believe you. The language was changing. And it terrified her. She came home that Friday trembling, eyes bloodshot. Danielle canceled on me, she said. She said she was busy. But she's lying. I know she is. Maybe she is busy, I offered gently. She thinks I made it up. I know it. I can feel it. Everyone does. They're whispering behind my back. She paced the living room, arms crossed so tightly her fingers dug into her biceps. Her breath came shallow, uneven. I did everything right, she whispered. I just wanted to keep you. I just wanted us to stay together. I thought, if there was a baby, you wouldn't. She stopped herself. I didn't move. Just stared at her, the weight of that incomplete sentence heavier than anything she'd said so far. Wouldn't what? I asked softly. She looked at me. A single tear slid down her cheek. Not dramatic. Not performed. A quiet surrender. Leave me, she said. I thought you'd leave. It was the first true thing she'd said in months. And it landed like a punch. Because it was never about the baby. Not really. It was about fear. Control. The desperate, spiraling logic of someone who believed love was a currency you had to counterfeit to keep spending. I stood up. Walked to her. Touched her cheek. She leaned into my palm like she'd been starved for it. Like she believed this meant forgiveness. But I wasn't offering that. I'm not leaving, I said. Not yet. Her eyes widened. What does that mean? It means I still believe in truth. Even if no one else does. She stared at me, trying to read between the words. And in that silence, I saw it, a flicker of panic. A question she was too scared to ask aloud. Do you know? I kissed her forehead and walked away before she could find the courage. Upstairs, I closed the door behind me and sat at my desk. Opened the folder on my laptop titled Proof. Inside, screenshots, audio clips, email logs, timestamped photos, purchase histories, even a digital receipt for the fake test. The final piece would come soon. Not with confrontation, but with precision. Because revenge doesn't scream. It whispers. It smiles. And then it takes everything. I didn't come after her with rage. I didn't throw things, scream accusations, or post angry revelations online. That would have been a gift. A direction. Something she could brace against. No, I gave her nothing. And nothing, it turns out, is the most devastating weapon of all. It started with space. Not physical distance, but emotional subtraction. I became quiet, neutral, supportive in a way that felt almost mechanical. No more unsolicited touches. No casual check-ins during the day. I stopped asking about her well-being. If she brought up the miscarriage, I let her speak, but gave no comfort in return. She noticed. Of course she did. Are we okay? She asked one night, curled beside me in bed. We're fine, I replied, staring at the ceiling. You've been different. We're grieving. Grief changes people. She nodded slowly, trying to absorb the answer like it meant something. But it didn't. That was the point. I wanted her to feel the void. To suspect that something had shifted, and not know where or how to fix it. Then came the next step, control the narrative. I called Danielle. Met her for coffee. She looked surprised, maybe a little wary. But I was polite. Calm. I told her I just wanted to clear the air. Said I felt like people were unsure what to say around us. Said I wanted to be honest, that we'd had a difficult time. You don't believe her? Danielle said softly, after a pause. I didn't confirm. I didn't deny. I just looked at her and said, sometimes people do things out of fear. That doesn't make them evil. But it doesn't make them innocent either. Danielle sipped her coffee in silence, her mind racing. She didn't need more. She already had enough doubt. She'd carry the rest of the message herself. The next morning, my wife asked me if I'd seen Danielle. She messaged me, she said. Asked if I needed anything. But it felt off. You didn't say anything to her, did you? Just that we're doing our best, I replied. Isn't that true? She stared at me, trying to peel away the calm, to find some emotion beneath it. Anger. Pain. Accusation. But I gave her none. I needed her to feel like the floor beneath her was shifting, not because I was pushing, but because her own weight was causing it to crack. That week, I began reworking our finances. Quietly rerouted payments. Changed account access. Closed shared credit cards. Shifted investments under my name. All legal. All premeditated. All invisible, until it mattered. And every day, she grew more unsteady. She overcorrected. Started cooking elaborate meals, tried initiating sex, bought me gifts I hadn't asked for, apologized for things I hadn't mentioned. She wasn't acting like someone grieving. She was acting like someone being watched, and performing for the camera she couldn't find. "I'm trying," she whispered once, voice thick with desperation. "I know I screwed up. But I'm still here. Doesn't that count for something?" I looked at her, and this time, I almost believed she believed it. "It counts," I said. "But not for what you think." She didn't ask what I meant. Because somewhere inside, she already knew. The first real move came on a Monday morning. She went to pay for groceries and called me from the parking lot, panicked, confused. My card declined. Twice. I paused a beat before answering. "That's strange," I said. "Maybe the bank flagged it. You've been using it a lot lately." That was the first thread I pulled. By noon, she was checking our accounts, only to discover the login didn't work. Password changed. Security questions reset. "Did you update something?" she asked, voice laced with forced calm. "I had to," I said smoothly. "Fraud alert. I thought I told you." She didn't push it further that day. But I knew she would. Because control wasn't a preference for her, it was her oxygen. And I just started closing the windows. The next hit came 2 days later. A text from her boss asking why she hadn't followed up with HR yet. She stared at her screen for minutes before showing it to me. "Followed up about what?" "Maternity leave," I offered quietly. Her face dropped. "But I didn't file anything." "Apparently you did." She sat down slowly. "I told them I was pregnant, but I didn't request anything official. Maybe it was a clerical thing?" I shrugged. "You should talk to them. Straighten it out." She did. And I knew it wouldn't go well. Because the HR email had come not from confusion, but from a forwarded message I had anonymously crafted and sent a week earlier using an internal contact I trusted to gossip more than verify. By Thursday, she was unraveling. "They think I lied," she said that night. "I could feel it in the room. Like I'd faked everything." I didn't reply. I just watched her crumble. She paced the bedroom, hair tied up hastily, sleeves pushed to her elbows, fury simmering just under the surface. But not at me. Not yet. Because I wasn't the one accusing her. I was the one still here. The one pretending. The one keeping everything together. "Someone's trying to ruin me," she whispered. "I don't know who. Or why." "You think it's Danielle?" I asked gently. She nodded. Too quickly. "She's always been weird about us. Maybe she's jealous. Or maybe someone else told her something. I don't know. But you didn't lie," I said, slow and steady. "No," she said sharply. "I mean, I didn't mean to. I thought I was pregnant." "You thought you were pregnant for 4 months?" Silence. Her mouth opened. Closed. No answer. That was the moment the foundation cracked. Because I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just let the question sit between us, like a loaded gun she knew she left on the table. That night she didn't sleep. She lay beside me, unmoving. Breathing shallow. I could feel the thoughts circling her like sharks. Every conversation replaying. Every smile I'd given her reinterpreted. Every silence now laced with meaning. Because she knew. She knew I knew. And not knowing what I'd do with that knowing was already destroying her. I started waking up earlier than her. Not by much, 15 minutes, maybe 20. Just enough to shower, dress, leave the bedroom without her seeing me. It was a small thing. Quiet. But routine is a kind of intimacy, and I was peeling it away piece by piece. She noticed on the 3rd day. "You were already up?" she asked, voice still hoarse from sleep. "Didn't want to wake you." It became habit. She'd come downstairs to find me sipping coffee alone, scrolling through my phone, already dressed, already gone in my mind. No more shared mornings. No soft kisses. No jokes over burnt toast. Just silence, punctuated by polite civility. Then I stopped texting during the day. No good morning. No how's your day. No reminders to pick up dinner. I let the quiet grow like ivy, crawling over every surface of our life. She filled the silence at first. How was work? Want me to cook tonight? Do you want to go somewhere this weekend? I answered everything. Politely. Concisely. Nothing to fight against. Nothing to hold on to. Work was fine. Whatever you want. Maybe next weekend. Until she stopped asking. She began lingering by windows. Checking her phone too often. Watching me like I was a stranger she once knew intimately. And I was. Because the man she manipulated had been real. This version, was sculpted from everything she feared most, indifference. I cancelled our upcoming vacation. Told her I couldn't get away from work. Then I started coming home later. Not too late. Just late enough to make her wonder where I was. I let the possibilities simmer in her head. Danielle, another woman, someone who knew the truth. She never accused me. She didn't dare. Instead, she tried to win me back with small gestures. Cleaning the garage. Folding my laundry. Buying a bottle of wine I once said I liked. But every attempt was met with the same chill. Thanks, I'd say. Never I love you. Never I miss you. Never us. The day I moved my things out of our joined office, she cracked. What is this? She asked, standing in the doorway, eyes wide, voice sharp. What are you doing? Needed space. For work. This isn't about work. This is about what happened. About what you think happened. I turned to her, slow and cold. What do I think happened? She swallowed. That I lied. That I made it up. I looked at her for a long time. Let the weight of silence stretch between us until her breath hitched. You're the only one who knows the answer to that, I said. Then I walked past her and closed the door behind me. That night, she sat alone on the couch, still dressed, face lit only by the flickering television. Her glass of wine untouched. A photo album opened beside her, the one we'd started when we first got married. I stood in the hallway, watching. Not hiding. Just observing. She never looked up. And in that moment I saw it. She wasn't scared I'd leave. She was scared I already had. And that I'd done it so quietly, so thoroughly, there was no one left to beg. The revenge wasn't in breaking her. It was in letting her break herself, slowly, privately, endlessly. And I had all the time in the world to watch. I moved out without ever packing a box. Piece by piece, item by item, I reclaimed my life while she was asleep, or distracted, or lost inside her own web of rehearsed grief and self-made fear. The shirts disappeared from the closet slowly. The framed photo from my desk vanished one day, and she never asked about it. Even my toothbrush was gone for 2 days before she noticed, and by then, I had already been staying elsewhere. There was no goodbye. No scene. Just the soft retreat of a man who had nothing left to prove. That was the final act of my revenge, not exposing her, not destroying her publicly, but removing myself so completely from her narrative that she had to face the story alone. I'd become a ghost in her house long before I ever left it. She called me once. A short message. No anger. No tears. I know what I did. I know it was wrong. I just didn't want to lose you. Please, can we talk? I never responded. There's a silence that's louder than any scream. I gave her that silence. Not out of cruelty, but because some lies are too deliberate to forgive, even if they're wrapped in tears and trembling voices. The friends she once manipulated for sympathy? They drifted. Danielle was the first to fully sever contact. Others followed, slowly, quietly, until her phone stopped lighting up with concerned check-ins. The condolences turned cold. The warmth she once weaponized curdled into isolation. I saw a photo of her, weeks later. Someone tagged her in a candid shot from a cafe. She looked unfinished. Not broken. Not shattered. Just incomplete. Like a house where the windows had been painted shut, and no one noticed until the air turned stale. She was surrounded by people, but her smile looked like it belonged to someone else's mouth. That was when I knew she was finally alone in her version of the story. And the story no longer had me in it. Months passed. Quietly. Fully. I moved into a small apartment near the lake. Nothing extravagant. Just enough space for books I had once pretended I didn't need, for silence I no longer had to defend, for breathing room without explanation. I got a dog. A quiet one. She didn't bark. She just followed me from room to room like she knew I'd spent too long being watched for the wrong reasons. And I started sleeping. Really sleeping. The kind of sleep you forget is possible until it finds you again, slow, deep, forgiving. Some nights I thought about her. Not often. Just enough to remind myself that it happened. That there was once a woman who built a future out of lies and expected me to build walls around it. But mostly, I didn't think about her at all. Revenge has a short shelf life once it's complete. You don't keep it on display. You don't replay it like a victory. You let it dissolve quietly into the person you've become since it ended. And she? She tried to reach out again. A letter this time. Handwritten. Folded with care. The kind of envelope you'd expect to find apologies in. I didn't open it. Not because I was afraid. But because some things don't deserve a reply, not even in your own mind. She had her words. She used them like weapons. Now they could sit unopened forever, dull, useless, and alone. Danielle reached out to me once. Just to check in. No prying. No gossip. "She's not doing well," she said. "Thought you should know." "I know," I said. And I did. Because someone like her doesn't just fall. She keeps falling. Rewriting the story every time. Making herself the victim in each new chapter, hoping eventually the script will stick. But it won't. Because the one person she wrote the play for, the one she tried to trap, isn't watching anymore. I'm not the audience. Not the villain. Not even the memory. I'm the silence she hears when the house creaks at night. I'm the calm she mistrusts because it doesn't ask anything of her. I'm the absence that answers every question with the same unspoken truth. You were never in control. Winter surrendered to spring before I realized an entire year had slipped behind me. I measured the passage not in months or milestones, but in the way ordinary moments returned to their natural weight. How a sunrise felt like light instead of a signal to brace. How laughter appeared in my throat without needing to check if anyone was counting. By early May, the lake thawed. I took the dog out at dawn, the water still a sheet of gray glass, the sky a soft bruise of violet and gold. We walked the shoreline where broken reeds and bottle-green glass collected after every storm. There was a calm in the debris, proof that even wreckage could be rearranged by patient waves into something almost beautiful. That morning, a notification pinged my phone. A local news outlet had quietly reported the closure of a small wellness startup downtown. The article was short, 3 paragraphs tucked beneath advertisements for coffee grinders and weather updates. It mentioned financial mismanagement, unanswered investor inquiries, lingering rumors. No names. But the address was familiar, the empty storefront my wife once toured, imagining pastel decor and a gentle brand of hope. I read the article twice, then locked my phone and slid it into my pocket. The dog nudged my leg, eager to keep moving. We did. Behind us, the city warmed, commuters shuffled, the world prepared for its usual noise. But on the shoreline there was only the hush of water turning over itself, the breeze lifting strands of my hair, and a slow exhale I hadn't noticed I'd been holding. I thought, briefly, of the lie she tried to turn into a life. How she'd pressed 2 pink lines against the softest part of my heart, certain the mark would never wash off. How she'd built an entire tragedy around a child who never existed, believing grief would bind me tighter than love ever could. And I realized then why her plan had failed. Because grief is a mirror. It shows you exactly what's missing. And there was never anything there. I reached the pier, threw a stick, the dog chased it into the shallows, splashing up arcs of silver water. Sunlight struck the ripples, scattering reflections that had no memory of the storms behind them. I smiled, not at any victory, but at the perfect ordinariness of the scene. In another part of the city, a woman I used to know would wake to an inbox absent of sympathy, to a phone free of second chances. She'd pour coffee into a cup that once promised a family future, watch steam rise like every truth she tried to bend, and perhaps wonder when exactly the silence swallowed her voice. She might tell herself I ruined her, or that fate conspired against her, or that the world punishes women for being ambitious. She could write 100 stories, each softer than the last, but the mirror would keep reflecting the same empty cradle of her lie. And me? I would not answer. Not her calls, not her posts, not her retellings. I had already left, so thoroughly that even my shadow no longer touched her doorway. The dog bounded back up the sand, stick in mouth, tail beating the cold air. I crouched, ruffled her damp fur, accepted the offered branch, and threw it again into the widening light. As she chased the new horizon, I whispered the words I'd waited a year to say aloud, a benediction, a farewell, a final line in a story I no longer carried. Some doors don't slam, they close like a breath you never take again. And just like that, the past stayed shut behind me, sealed without sound, without hate, without weight. Only the echo of a lock turning somewhere far away, too faint for anyone but her to hear. Thank you for listening to this story until the very end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to Betrayal and Revenge, give us a like, and hit the bell so you won't miss new tales. Share your thoughts in the comments, I value your feedback. See you in the next stories of Betrayal and Revenge.